Crabbe by William Bell. Journal 1. Sometimes at night, after they've turned out the lights, I sit up in bed and just watch the highway. I prop up the pillows behind me, lean back on the headboard, link my fingers behind my head, and sort of drift off. It's a nice quiet time. There's no noise from the ward except the soft squeak of a nurse's shoes on the floors, or maybe a distant cough. And I can let my mind slip through the window, out across the frosted lawns and naked shrubs, to the road which is lit dimly by amber lamps. I like to watch the moving lights and listen to the sounds of motion. The cars sift through with a sibilant whoosh, moving fast. It's the trucks I like best, though. They power along, lit up with colored lights around the cabs and along the trailers. The big diesel snorting and grinding up the grade. I suppose I spend a lot of time of the day watching the highway, too. It's pretty boring in this place, especially since they moved me to a private a few days ago. I can always go to one of the wards and get up a game of checkers or cribbage with one of the men, but that gets tedious after a while. A lot of them watch TV, but I don't. There's nobody my age on our floor since I came. All the teenagers are up on 5th in the psycho ward. I'm in this ward because they don't quite know what to do with me. The only real point of interest is my daily hour with Dr. Brown. He's the shrink who's got the job of discovering what's wrong with Crabbe. Until today, I've held him off pretty well, mainly because he's easy to figure and his methods are obvious. As soon as I find out what role he's going to play that day, I can put on a corresponding costume and try to keep him under control until the interview is over. Acting sincere helps. Maybe I should explain. He will always be either father, friend, or firm. He doesn't have much faith in honesty, I've discovered. When he's father, he will be all authority and show great paternal concern for me. And he'll control the discussions, if you can call them that, without trying to pretend he isn't. As friend, he's the funniest, though, of course, I never let on. He tries very hard to get down to my level and be a pal, one of the boys. He even takes a few pathetic shots at slang. Only his expressions are from the movies or a thousand years out of date. What's going on today, Franklin? Last meeting, he told me as I left that I probably thought I was a groovy guy. Can you believe it? I broke up when I heard that one. Luckily, I was almost out the door. His nurse gave me a strange look. Firm is the touchiest for me, because then he isn't messing around with textbook methods. He even shows anger at times. I try to steer him off firm, because that's the biggest threat to me. He comes too close then. So I play the game with him, by my rules. I know it's cynical, but I have to do it. It's like he doesn't listen, like he's already decided what you should be saying. I try to tell him that I don't want to talk about what happened, that I just want to be left alone. But like most adults, he doesn't hear. Why did you want to die, Crabbe? He asked me one time. Useless to tell him that I didn't want to die. But he kept on, pulling out these bloody obvious shrink tricks like the 3Fs, circling me like a predator looking for an opening. Like most grown-ups, he thinks teenagers are basically stupid and easily manipulated. He thinks he can find feeling with an X-ray machine. People my age may not know how to juggle the books or play politics, but feelings we know about. Last session, for instance, he was father. He kept me waiting outside his office as usual. When I went in, he was sitting in his customary pose behind the desk. To look at his office, you'd swear he never did anything in there all day. Not a thing was out of place. On his large desk top were a phone, black, a brass lamp, a pen, a green blotter with leather edges, and one clean ashtray, all in exactly the same place each day. I did my best to fill up the ashtray with burnt matches. He always looked the same, too. 3-piece suit, dark tie, white shirt, Mr. Respectability. He was short and pudgy with fat little fingers and 3 chins. His heavy horn-rimmed glasses frequently slipped down his nose. He was almost bald, but hadn't accepted the fact yet. In a way, Dr. Brown looked like a little like a fat elementary school kid who somehow managed to sneak into the principal's office and was trying out the chair just for fun. I often wondered if his shoes touched the floor. The chair was one of those high-back jobs with solid upholstered arms, and he looked lost in it. On this particular day, he was being fathered, so my comfy chair was carefully placed a little to the left of center across from him. We made the ritual small talk that was supposed to break the ice. Was I comfortable? Was the food all right? Stuff like that. Then he started in, but with an indirect approach. By the way, Franklin, I've meant to talk to you about your smoking." He crossed his pudgy legs and rested his arms lightly on the armchairs. On his right little finger was a gold signet ring that looked like a collar on a tiny piglet. I was, at that point, in the middle of filling my pipe, which isn't easy when your left hand is bandaged and has only 2 fingers and a thumb. I zipped up the tobacco pouch and jammed it into the back pocket of my jeans. I struck a wooden match in the metal zipper of my pants and put it to the bowl, blowing out a cloud of soft blue smoke. The color of smoke you see on a lazy July morning, when your campfire is coaxing the chill out of the air. Then I flipped the spent match toward the ashtray and missed. The shrink followed. He reached out and picked up the match between thumb and forefinger, handling it like it was a fly dropping, and let it fall into the glass ashtray. He leaned back in his chair, pretending not to be annoyed that the ashtray had been violated. "Your general health is up to par now," he continued, "owing to the excellent care you've received since you were admitted 2 weeks ago. But as we know, Franklin, smoking is injurious to one's health, and you are well on your way toward developing a habit that may well prove exceedingly difficult to master." Plastering on my concerned look, I flashed what I hoped would be an innocent smile. "Oh, don't worry, Father, Doctor. I don't inhale the smoke. I almost blew it that time. And anyway," I said, leaning forward, "I read in the Science Canada magazine that pipe smokers develop cancer 87.9% less than cigarette smokers." This was a lie, but I figured he couldn't have read every magazine in the world. I thought the .9 was a nice touch. "Anyway," I hurried on, "I like smoking. Enough to balance the risk, that's for sure. How do you like the aroma of this tobacco?" Brown would never admit it smelled like dehydrated camel droppings, which it does if you're not smoking it. He performed a dramatic inhalation and said, "It's quite pleasant, actually, Franklin." Before he got rolling, I jumped in again. "I know smoking is a vice, Doctor. I really do. But I think most people have at least a couple of vices, don't you?" "Well, I suppose that's true." Off I ran again. "What vices do you have, Doctor? I'm sure they're only small ones." Then sincere again. "I hope you don't think I'm nosy. I was just wondering." I try to ask as many questions as I can, especially if he's being friend or father. He feels obliged to answer me so he can keep up the pretense that we're having a nice chat, and that uses up part of the hour. Eventually he has to be rude and interrupt my inane questions to get us back on the path he intends us to walk that day. For another thing, asking questions helps me keep on top and better able to defend myself. He has to begin circling again, looking for another opening. "Well, we're hardly here to talk about me, are we, Franklin?" Brown liked rhetorical questions. He got back to the pipe. "No, I'm just interested in your pipe there. It looks to be quite old. Briar, isn't it?" Sincere look of concentration. "I'm not sure, Doctor. What's briar?" "Briar is a dense wood. The holes in the roots are used in making pipes. The bowls in the roots are used in making pipes. I believe the best briar comes from the Mediterranean. The wood," he caught himself and steered back on course. "That pipe's looked very well used. You must have got it from someone. A gift, perhaps." See what I mean? How obvious could he get? The pipe was a gift, sort of, but one I certainly wasn't going to tell him about. It was the basis of his strategy this session. He saw it as a weak spot in the defenses that I fought like hell to keep intact every day. He planned to get me talking about the pipe, where I got it, and so on, until the wall was breached. Then he'd move past my defenses and ransack my head for information. But you could see the attack coming miles away. "Oh," I smiled, "I really can't remember where I got this pipe, Doctor. My memory isn't too reliable, at times. I don't know why." Brown had been sitting back in his large chair, his elbows resting on the arms. He was making a little steeple with his fingers. When I handed him the line about my memory, he pounced forward and slapped his hands down on top of the desk. "But you do, Franklin. You do know." He was as close as he ever came to shout. "I've told you several times," he exclaimed impatiently. "We have blanks when our mind is hiding something it does not wish to confront a master. Memory blanks are proof that we need to talk these things out. Franklin, I've been through all this with you before." Well, yes, I guess I forgot. He ignored that one, and sitting back, rebuilt the steeple. "I don't know why," he said "we" all the time. There was nothing wrong with his memory, or mine, for that matter. Maybe he was trained in a kindergarten class. "I sometimes wonder," he continued, Whether our memory lapses aren't a bit selective, Franklin. Doctor? I was playing for time now. My pipe had gone out, so I had slowly fished a match out of my shirt pocket and deliberately struck the match under the overhanging ledge of his desk. He pretended not to notice, but you could almost hear him gritting his teeth, imagining the obscene streak of sulfur on the underside of his glowing virginal desktop. What I mean, he explained, with the patience of a schoolmarm, is that I think sometimes you are, putting me on. You forget significant things at significant times. What do you mean? I asked, all innocence. You merely inquired about my pipe, and I said, Look, Franklin, let's forget the pipe, he said, a little of the firm approach slipping past into his tone. Let's just forget about it. Our hour is passing quickly, and Yes, so it is, I interrupted, and I certainly do enjoy. Please don't interrupt, he shot back. Leaning forward again, arms on the desk, he linked his little sausages together into one tiny double fist. He meant business now. And please, he went on, listen, I'm not pleased with your progress, Franklin. I'm not pleased at all. All along, you resisted my efforts to help you face your problems, square on. But it must happen. It must. We ignore our inner problems at our peril. You were brought to this hospital extremely run down, physically, and on the verge of emotional disturbance. Nobody knows where you've been for the last few months. You refuse to tell us. You refuse to discuss why you ran away. You pretend. Yes, pretend. Don't give me that look, to forget what transpired during your absence. You will not even acknowledge the effects your actions had on your poor parents. And most dangerous of all, you avoid altogether the attempt to end your own life. You imagine, apparently, that no one can see that scar on your left wrist. Furthermore, I think our time is up, Dr. Brown, I cut in. I leaned over and banged my pipe in the ashtray to get the ashes out. I'd had enough of this crap. His pudgy face grew redder, like a round thermometer splashed with hot water. Don't interrupt me, and sit down in that chair. Brown had never been like this before. His professional calm evaporated. He was becoming human before my eyes. But I'd had enough. My control was slipping too. I will not sit down. Don't order me around. Who the hell do you think you are anyway? Do you think I'm a simpleton that you can manipulate day after day? You don't know me. You've never tried to talk to me like I was a human being. You think I'm just another nutcase like those poor buggers you've got chained upstairs. I was really rolling now. A lot of junk was coming to the surface, demanding to be spit out. From the very beginning, you've treated me like a 2-year-old. I'm supposed to bare my bloody soul to a total stranger who's already decided I'm a suicide? Why don't we talk at these stupid meetings? Why? I think you'd better stop now, Franklin, he said. His calmness returned. He wouldn't look at me in the face. He pushed his glasses further up his nose and said wearily, You are a boy with some very serious problem, and you, I fired back, are an impertinent son of a bitch. I stuck my pipe in my mouth and walked out, closing the door quietly behind me. When I look back on my brief, empty relationship with Dr. Brown, I sometimes wonder if had he been a different kind of person, I'd have let my guard down. Probably not, but you never know. There are some experiences you want to share with someone as if the experience is somehow incomplete until you include the other person in its existence. But sometimes something happens that's so special, so much a part of what you are, you want to kind of save it, at least for a while, and maybe forever. But if you save it in your head, the memories get newer memories piled on top of them, like old furniture in a dark attic, until you can't find the originals anymore. That's why I decided to write all this down in a journal, just like in school. Only this time, it's real.